Good evening, everyone. Good evening to 2020, and good evening, you hearty souls. Welcome to the Beat's 2020 Year in Review. Let's get started. Good evening, and welcome to our Year in Review. I'm Panharidth In here at the home studio in New York. It is so good to be with you right now. You know, I've been hosting these Year in Reviews for 6 years now, and this is my first one for the Beat, and I'm so excited to be doing this. You know, 2020 has been a very interesting year, and that's saying the least, but it's also been a year of headlines, and here's some of the big headlines that we have seen throughout this entire year. Take a look.
Former league MVP Kobe Bryant died earlier this afternoon in Los Angeles in a helicopter crash.
Times is reporting that retired Los Angeles Lakers basketball star Kobe Bryant has been killed in a helicopter crash. It happened this morning. The chopper reportedly went down just before 10 a.m.
Deeply divided moment playing out in American history as we come on the air. President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1, abuse of power, and on Article 2, obstruction of Congress.
On this article of impeachment, 47 senators have pronounced Donald John Trump, President of the United States, guilty as charged. 53 senators have pronounced him not guilty as charged.
Virus, which has infected hundreds in China, has now reached the United States.
Outbreak. It is taking a serious turn in California, where a cruise ship is being held off the coast right now.
We're going to put out an executive order today. New York State on pause.
Coronavirus pandemic now has surpassed 400,000 people. More than a quarter of those deaths are here in the United States, where as of this morning, more than 110,000 people have died of the virus.
The global death toll from COVID just reached 1 million, a staggering figure, though the World Health Organization believes the real number may be even higher. Here in the U.S., 29 states are reporting an increase in new cases compared to 2 weeks ago.
Facing 200,000 coronavirus deaths.
New York City's first Black Lives Matter street mural in Brooklyn is complete. This is a drone video of the finished product. The words Black Lives Matter in bright yellow paint now covers a stretch of Fulton Street in Bed-Stuy.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell in Washington. We are coming on the air at this hour because CBS News has confirmed that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died at the age of 87 from complications from metastatic pancreatic cancer.
The question is, Justice, radical left. Will you shut up, man?
We are seeing our first race results of the night, Georgia and South Carolina.
It is an anxious, unsettling time. And through it all, America is voting like never before. When the polls opened this morning, more than 100 million of us had already cast our ballots. An astonishing display of
Joe Biden is the apparent winner in Wisconsin. The apparent winner in Wisconsin is now projecting Joe Biden will win the key state of
From the state of Pennsylvania. Those results are in right now, and based on what we are seeing there, we can say that Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. is on track to win the state of Pennsylvania, become the 46th president of the United States.
With this victory, Kamala Harris is set to become the first woman and the first person of color to be the vice president.
The federal government approving the nation's first COVID-19 vaccination.
The administration granted emergency authorization use for the Moderna vaccine last night.
And quite the year it has been. And this year we are going to be celebrating a little bit differently due to the pandemic. And that means that the annual celebration out in Times Square will also look a little bit different as well. Only 100 specially invited frontline workers will be at the crossroads of the world, but some people may fear that a few thousand may crash the party. Here's what New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio had to say about that earlier this week.
You're exactly right. New Year's Eve this year is not a place, Times Square is not a place to congregate.
This has also been the year of the coronavirus. 19 million people in the United States have been reported having the coronavirus, and 300,000 people have passed away. On the global scale, 80 million people have reportedly contracted the coronavirus, and 2 million people have passed away. Now, with hopes of vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna, some hope that those vaccines will be the tide that turns the ship around. And just this week, the government of the United Kingdom has approved the Oxford AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine. And while New Year's may look different this year, there are a few customs and traditions that we hold dear. For instance, my tradition every New Year's Eve is to watch the movie New Year's Eve on New Year's Eve. And maybe this year we can start a collective tradition together. How about this one? Baking bread. That's right, in the first few weeks of quarantine, many home cooks rolled up their sleeves and rolled out their dough to avoid going to the supermarket. And according to eatthis.com, the loaf of choice was sourdough. This journalist right here prefers a slab of focaccia, but here are the other obsessions that we had throughout the entire year. We start off with this Netflix show that stayed at the top of the charts. Roar. Ah yes, Tiger King's Joe Exotic dragged by the liger. Ouch. And the cat lady, his co-star Carol Baskin, turned Dancing with the Stars contestant this past year. She spawned so many TikToks from her alleged actions on the show. And speaking of TikToks, yup, it is that app that has caught this year by storm. From interesting and inspiring dance moves like this, to viral recipes like this, Dalgona coffee or whipped coffee, one of my favorites during quarantine. And by the way, bake, 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 bake. That's right, bread and among other things were a favorite. Check out these 100-hour brownies right here. They look delicious. But you know what? We didn't have to just face the pandemic, we had to beat the COVID-19 pounds, and home workouts were a plus since gyms were closed. By the way, this man gave us a little bit of calm here in New York. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and his daily briefings, along with his entertaining PowerPoints, have spawned their own Instagram accounts. And then this man right here, Dr. Anthony Fauci. After nearly 40 years in public service, Americans turned to Dr. Fauci as the voice they could trust in the pandemic. He also spawned many TikTok fan cams. Go Fauci, go. Now, I sincerely apologize to my grandparents downstairs for putting up with my home workouts this year. While stay-at-home orders are in place in many parts of the country and the world, the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic allowed us to pause for a moment. Check out this photo right here. That top photo right there shows New Delhi's India Gate being obscured by haze on October 17, 2019, but during the country's COVID-19 lockdowns, the air was cleaner and the view was clearer, as in the photo taken from the same spot on April 8, 2020, as shown below. And as the world paused and took a breath, we listened to a worldwide concert. As the world paused, we listened to this Spanish terrace concert in Barcelona, where two people were playing Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On. To twins Mirko and Valerio playing Coldplay's Viva La Vida in their Italian basement. And their home, Italy, the former European epicenter of the coronavirus. To this orchestral ensemble of What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love, played over Zoom. And we can't forget the sounds of cheering, clapping, and banging from London to New York City to show healthcare and frontline workers that we care about them, and to say thank you for keeping our lives as normal as possible. By show of clappation, am I the only one that has succumbed to the side effects of quarantine? I have suffered from Blur's Day, and I have the definition right here. It's, let's see, when you jumble all the days of the week together because you have no idea what day it is. Guilty as charged. Also, having a Zoom shirt. Guilty as charged. Except I had this one fresh, just fresh, picked out for you. As we look back through the year, we also remember a major inflection point in 2020. Throughout the country, waves of protests and marches, the likes of which many haven't seen since the civil rights movement, have sprung up across the country after the deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, and many other Black Americans, just to name a few. And just this Tuesday, we have learned that 2 Louisville police officers connected with Breonna Taylor's death have been fired. The grand jury trial and verdict surrounding Taylor's death have been criticized and denounced by the Taylor family and activists across the country, as the verdict didn't convict the officers who were responsible for Taylor's death. Here's a look at the moments where people marched for equal justice under law. An American movement calling for racial equality and equity spans the globe. And a nation founded on the principle that all men are created equal is now a nation learning that some are still trying to achieve that long-desired promise. Say her name! Breonna Taylor! Say his name! The chants of Black Lives Matter reverberating across the country and around the world.
Uptown, Harlem, the Heights. Conversation about racism in America has gripped the world. Protesters' demands are loud and clear.
And an icon, Congressman John Lewis, fighting to the very end. And although this year was challenging in its own right, this was also the year where people first said the words, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. After a nasty and tumultuous election cycle, California Senator Kamala Harris has been elected Vice President of the United States, making her the first woman and the first person of color to serve as Vice President. She will be serving alongside former Vice President, now 46th President-elect of the United States, Joseph R. Biden Jr. To show you how calm the election was, we have a little package.
Great honor and humility. I accept this nomination for President of the United States of America.
An election of many firsts, but also an election marked by vitriol and contention. The 2020 presidential election was one that had all of us on the edge of our seats.
This nomination for President of the United States.
I humbly accept your nomination to run and serve as Vice President of the United States. In addition,
the debates nastier than ever.
The radical left. Will you shut up, man?
That had every journalist saying this.
The worst presidential debate I have ever seen.
A night of chaos, an interruption, where bullying.
This was embarrassing for me.
Clearly, this debate was an embarrassment for the United States of America.
And then an October surprise like no other.
I just went for a test, and we'll see what happens. I mean, who knows? But you know her very well. She's fantastic, and she's done a great job. But it's very, very hard when you are with people from the military or from law enforcement.
They're on, they're off. They're on, they're off. Let me give you the latest that I know on the next presidential debates. So what's happening, let me tell you. The town hall format was originally supposed to be next Wednesday, October 15th at 9 o'clock. Regular stuff. But because the president contracted COVID-19, the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates said we are making this virtual. Donald Trump said, no, it's not happening. It's not going to be virtual. He backed out. Now the debate schedule is pushed back. And although there was no town hall format of the debate, there was still a vice presidential
a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life.
And let me tell you, somebody who has presented my fair share of arguments in court, the case against Donald Trump and Mike Pence is open and shut.
It is an anxious, unsettling time. And through it all, America is voting like never before. When the polls opened this morning, more than 100 million of us had already cast our ballots.
And though we didn't have the result at the end of the night, those of us on Instagram or television guided you through the way.
These states, the suburbs around Charlotte as well, the suburbs around Winston-Salem.
The president at the moment is turning 2-1 over Joe Biden.
Now say that Joe Biden
And
is
as
the
the days went on,
winner
Joe Biden
in
went
Wisconsin,
to go
the
and
apparent
rebuild the
winner
blue wall
in Wisconsin.
that Donald Trump tore down.
Projecting Joe Biden will win the key state of Michigan. That state has gone to Democrats in the past, but it famously went to Donald Trump 4 years ago. Again, ABC News now projecting Joe Biden has won the state.
State of Pennsylvania, those results are in right now, and based on what we are seeing there, we can say that Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. is on track to win the state of Pennsylvania, become the 46th president of the United States.
CBS News projects that Joe Biden has been elected the 46th president of the United States.
Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States, winning the White House and denying President Trump a second term. With this victory, Kamala Harris is set to become the first woman and the first person of color to be the vice president.
And after 4 straight days, history was in the making.
For all those of you who volunteered and worked the polls in the middle of this pandemic.
Did I say calm? I meant chaotic. We're nearing the end of the broadcast right now, but before we go, we decided to take a moment to reflect on those we have lost this year, in memoriam.
Mamba out. Through love, you continue to persevere and you move through them. You move.
Here comes Kathy Lee Johnson. This is the time to say goodbye to everybody. I wanted to thank our staff, our crew, the Prop House guys, where it all started for me years ago. My producers, Gelman, and of course my lovely co-hosts over the years. You know, this was the last chance I had of this business, to make it here in New York. And I came back a little bit late in my life.
You've got to kiss an angel good morning.
Bond. James Bond.
Mr. Bond, I suppose you wouldn't care to, raise the limit?
Take a red and white. I get up.
I am now 86 years old, yet people of all ages want to take their picture with me.
I, State of Pittsburgh, do solemnly swear
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution.
March today for jobs and freedom. But we have nothing to be proud of. Hundreds and thousands of our brothers are not here.
Years, but we still have a great distance to go before we fulfill the dream of Martin Luther King Jr.
I've had just enough time. Ooh, yeah. So
Look down over what you conquered and appreciate what God has brought you through.
You'll be tuned in. And that's 2020 for now. We thank you for watching.
And remember, we're in touch, so you be in touch. I'm Barbara Walters.
I'm Hugh Dowd.
As everyone here, thank you and good night.
The host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek.
I like that. Let's take a look at your response. Did you come up with the right one? No? What is we love you? That's very kind. Thank you.
Try to be aware of when you leave this earth that you've made a difference in the lives of other people.
And that just about does it for us this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in every week to our podcast. I'm so thankful to the many of you who allowed me onto your smartphones through the ear or through the eyes. I really appreciate it. And before we go, I've contacted a few people last week to send in their own hopes and aspirations for the new year. And we have another video package to end us off. Until then, I'm Panharidth In here in New York. Have a great evening, good night, and Happy New Year.